Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Let me tell you a story. During World War II, the US faced a deadly problem. Too many of their planes were being shot down, and the ones that were coming back were riddled with bullet holes, like you see here. But they were in three areas: the wings, the tail, and the fuselage. So the obvious solution seemed like just reinforcing those areas with more armor, right? But a mathematician named Abraham Wald asked a different question. What about the planes that never made it back? They were hit somewhere else, right? And that proved fatal. So he actually suggested reinforcing all the areas with no bullet holes. It seemed counterintuitive. It seemed illogical almost, but it worked. More planes came back home. Because sometimes the real problem isn't where the damage is visible, it's where we aren't looking. And that's exactly the issue with hunger. For decades, we've been trying to solve hunger with more. More food, more donation, more resources, more volunteering. And incredible work has happened. Millions of lives have been saved. Yet, hunger isn't shrinking. 700 million people go to sleep hungry every single night. And that's despite 1 billion meals being wasted every single day. In fact, global hunger has increased by 35% over the last decade instead of going down. We've been reinforcing what we see: lack of food, lack of funds, lack of resources. But maybe the real issue is what we aren't seeing. Because you see, visibility isn't just about awareness. It's about making something impossible to ignore. For me, hunger was always just a statistic. I honestly didn't care until August of 2019. At the time, I was running a brand innovation lab, and we were working with an FMCG giant on a nutrition program for them. So after one of those meetings where we've immersed ourselves in, hunger statistics, what can we do for nutrition, my team and I stepped down to a restaurant, to go to a restaurant to have lunch. And it was drizzling. So we were walking to the restaurant, and on the side of the road, there was this homeless girl sitting under one of those blue tarpaulins, and she was eating something from a plate. But the rainwater was falling into her plate. But she wasn't distressed. It didn't affect her. She just kept eating. She didn't even try to cover her food or move. And that's when it struck me. Because hunger isn't loud, it doesn't grab attention like, say, a war, a fire, or a flood. It just lingers quietly. And that made me ask, what if hunger isn't just something that you read about in the newspaper? What if it becomes part of our everyday lives and it starts living with us? It becomes impossible to ignore. So my team and I, at that time, took this on as a passion project. I knew nothing about social impact or charities. All I understood and knew was branding, marketing, and consumer behavior. So that's where we started. The first question we asked ourselves was, who do we need to talk to actually make hunger massively visible? Who's the TG? Now, let me do a quick poll. How many of you in this room actively and regularly donate or volunteer with charities? Show of hands. Okay, that's roughly 10% of the room. Now, this is the group that most social impact organizations, charities focus on, right? You volunteer, you give back, you donate, you're the change makers. But the act itself is a reward for you. So what ends up happening is you will not talk about what you're doing, and the conversation stops there. But then there's 90% of the people who are like me. We want to do more, but we don't want to go out of our way. We want to give back, but we also want something back in return as gratitude, right? But this audience was largely ignored. So we said, why not focus on this 90%? Now the next question was, we want this 90% to talk about hunger, right? But to talk, you need to give them something that is talk-worthy. So we ask the next question. What is it that people love? What is it that people would genuinely want to talk about? What is it that gives us pride and joy? And that's when the answer came to us, our homes. Most of us love inviting people over, right? We love people coming over for dinner, for lunch, for just a get-together. And there, we love showing them things about our house. We love showing them the things we've collected, the stories behind them, because our homes are a reflection of who we are. And that is what gives us immense pride and joy. So the question we asked ourselves is, what can we give these people that they bring into their homes? That's a symbol of joy for them. That's a symbol of pride. And it's something that they actually love talking about. And that's how the idea of art plates came about. Because art bypasses logic. Art connects at an emotional level. And art can tell stories without needing words. So that's what we did. Now, the next big thing was we had the TG sorted. We knew what we want to give them and that will cause conversations. But again, the problem was scale. We wanted to make hunger massively visible. So the question was, how do you achieve scale? Because scale requires resources. Now, traditionally, for resources in the impact space, NGOs, charities have always reached out to the CSR teams, right? CSR budgets. But CSR budgets are limited. Now, what if we actually reached out to marketing teams? And we use marketing budgets which are more or less infinite. Now, we had a very, very simple proposition. We would go into the marketing team and we would tell them that we will deliver an end-to-end brand campaign for you. But the campaign will center around limited edition collectibles. Now, the brand team would pay for our time cost and for production costs, which allowed us to sell all of these items 100% for charity. So the branding team got what they wanted, a great campaign, great PR, earned media, and we got to 10x our impact. So one of the first series that we ever launched was called A Quarter of Nostalgia. Simple brief, 6 artists, 1 brief. Think of the happiest memory from your childhood and depict it on a plate. Now these are the memories that artists had about, mom and dad telling you that go on the cycle and get milk and then you would do it like a mission, or collecting fireflies. Somebody from the Northeast did that. But each artist was told, leave 1/4 of the plate blank. Now that sparks curiosity, right? Hey, why is 1/4 of this plate blank? You've got guests coming over to your house, they're looking at this, saying it's a beautiful piece of art, but what happened? Did the color run out? Why is this part blank? And that's where you tell them the story, that 1 in 4 kids in India's cities are malnourished. Hunger suddenly became a part of the conversation, without guilt, without any pressure, just out of curiosity. And it became a conversation starter in the party. Now these efforts allowed us to actually, last Independence Day, donate 75,000 meals in 1 month alone. Till date, we've donated 750,000 meals in 4 years. We've been on national television and had sharks talk about hunger as an issue. And we've had so many people reach out and say, your products have helped me spark meaningful conversations in my home. But there's so much more to do, because there are so many more important issues in society today that remain invisible and unnoticed. Dopamine addiction is reshaping our minds, but we don't talk about it enough. Anemia affects millions. 1 in 2 women, as per one statistic that I read, suffers from anemia, but we don't talk about it. Mental health struggles are everywhere, but they remain invisible. Real change doesn't need to start with grand gestures and a billionaire coming in and donating money. It can just start with seeing differently. Because once you truly see something, you can't unsee it. And once enough people see it, that's how movements begin. So here's my question for you today. What's one invisible problem that you can help the world see differently? Thank you.